Hello everyone. Today we will be learning about question mark. So, a question mark is also known as an interrogation point or an interrogation mark. It is used to end an interrogative sentence. A question indicates that the speaker is seeking a response, an answer, or information. An interrogative sentence is one of the four types of sentences. What does it do? It asks question. Now let us see how and when to use question mark. First rule is to end a direct question. So what is a direct question? It is a direct question is asked directly to a person or a group of people to get an answer. Example, how are you? Now, this is a direct question. It is being asked directly to a person. Okay? Sentences beginning with words such as who, when, where, why, what, which, and how are usually direct questions. If a sentence begins with one of these words, it is usually a question and should end with a question mark. Examples: where is your home? How far is your school? Which is your favorite movie? See, all these are direct questions. Okay, so we place a question mark after a direct question. However, some direct questions begin with different words. Okay, examples: have you seen my cat? Is it raining outside? Are you hungry? See, all these questions are also direct questions, but they do not begin with which, when, how, and all. Okay, so after these direct questions, we are placing a question mark. See, after the question mark, always capitalize the first letter of the next sentence. This is because a question mark indicates the end of a direct question. Examples: when are you going to the Maldives? Why didn't you tell me? See, when are you going to the Maldives? After this question, we are placing a question mark. The next word, okay, the next letter of the sentence begins with a capital letter. See, that is why we have capitalized W in Y. Next, example: how old is this place? My dad wants to know. See, again, after how old is this place, that we have placed a question mark, the next letter of the next sentence, okay, that is M, okay, is capitalized because a question mark indicates the end of a direct question. So the next letter must be capitalized. Third question: when are you leaving? Please let me know. Again, after the question mark, we are starting the next sentence with a capital letter. The first letter of the word in the next sentence must be capitalized. Next rule is for rhetorical questions. What do you mean by rhetorical question? A rhetorical question is asked to make a point without expecting an answer. It is used to make a point, express a strong emotion, or convey sarcasm. It is often used to grab readers' or listeners' attention and involve them in the communication. Examples: do you want to be late for the movie? See, this is a rhetorical question. Okay, it doesn't require an answer. Okay, it is you're trying to express your point that do you want to be late for the movie? Okay, next, can't you work hard? See, this is also a rhetorical question which doesn't require an answer. Third question: don't you think it's time to start? See, all these questions are rhetorical questions. In these questions, a person do not expect an answer in return. Okay, these are asked in order to make a point or express an emotion or sometimes to convey a sarcasm. Okay. Next, multiple questions in a row. When writing multiple questions in a row, use a question mark after each question. Again, the first letter of the next sentence is always capitalized. Example: where is mom? Isn't she back? Is dinner ready? See, multiple questions in a row. And after each question, we are placing a question mark, and the first letter of the next sentence is always capitalized. See, I in isn't, I in is capitalized. Okay, because a question mark, a direct question, in a direct question, when we place a question mark, it means it is a end of a direct question. So we need to, the next letter of the sentence must be capitalized. Second question: are you coming? Can I join you? Will it be fun? See, multiple questions in a row. So after each question mark, the next letter is capitalized. See, C in can, W in will are capitalized. Next, how was the party? Did you have fun? How was the food? See, again after each question mark, the next letter is capitalized. That is D in did, H in how are capitalized. Next, for question tags. So, what do you mean by a question tag? A question tag is a short question added to the end of a sentence to ask for confirmation or agreement. Examples: you are coming to the party, aren't you? See, aren't you is a question tag which is being placed at the end of a sentence. So, you're here, you're asking for confirmation that are you coming to the party or no? Okay. So, in such cases, the question tag is placed at the end. Okay. You are coming to the party, aren't you? Okay. Next, her mother is a scientist, isn't she? Again, you're asking for a confirmation. Isn't she a scientist? Third example, let's go to the park. Shall we? Fourth example, he never plays mobile games. Does he? Gia can climb a tree, can't she? See, in all these examples, we are placing the question tag at the end of a sentence to ask for confirmation or agreement. In such cases, we use a question mark for question tags. Next, for courtesy questions. So, what do you mean by a courtesy question? A courtesy question is asked when the speaker wants to emphasize that the request is polite, not a command. Examples: could you pass the sauce, please? See, here you're asking a question in a polite way, not in a commanding way. Okay? So, such questions are referred to as courtesy questions. Next, can you bring me a glass of water, please? Third question, could you please hand me a towel? See, in all these questions, there being something is being asked in a polite way, okay, in a polite manner, not in a commanding way. So, such questions which are referred to as courtesy question, we place a question mark at the end of a courtesy questions. Next rule, an internal question mark to show uncertainty. So, example, the meeting is scheduled at 1 p.m. See, first of all, what do you mean by uncertainty? Uncertainty means something which you're not sure of. Okay. See here, the meeting is being scheduled at 1 p.m. and you have placed a question mark inside the bracket after 1. This indicates that you're not sure whether the meeting is scheduled at 1 p.m. or there is some uncertainty about it. You're not sure whether the meeting is at 1 p.m. Okay. Therefore, we are placing a question mark inside the bracket after 1. Next example, the party was attended by 50 number of people. See, again after 50, you are placing an internal question mark inside the brackets. This indicates or it refers that you're not sure whether the party was attended by 50 number of people, more than 50 number of people, or less than 50 number of people. Third example, Akira is throwing a party for 100 number of people. See, again, an internal question mark inside the brackets refers or indicates that you are not sure whether it was 100 number of people, more or less. Okay? See, an internal question mark is mainly used in informal writing and is rarely used in formal writing. In formal writing, it is always better to use words such as approximately, roughly, or nearly instead. See, you can tell that the party was attended by approximately 50 number of people. That is how we nowadays we use it, right? We don't use an internal question mark, correct? So it is internal question mark is mainly used in informal writing. It's always better if you choose approximately or roughly or nearly instead. Okay. Next rule is while using quotation marks. See, if the quotation mark is part of the quoted material, sorry, if the question mark is part of the quoted material, place the question mark inside the quotation marks. Examples, she asked, are you coming home today? See, here the question mark is being placed inside the quotation marks. Okay, that means the question mark belongs to the quoted material. It doesn't belong to the entire sentence. Okay, therefore, we are placing a question mark inside the quotation marks because it belongs to that quoted material only. Next example, Mr. Tom said, where are my keys? Again, a question mark goes inside the quotation marks because it belongs to the quoted material. However, if the question mark belongs to the entire sentence, then the question mark goes outside the quotation marks. Example, did he say I love you? See here, the question mark does not go inside the quotation marks. It is placed outside. Why? Because it does not belong to the only to the quoted material. It belongs to the whole sentence. Okay. See, read that above sentence again. If the question mark is part of the quoted material, then only we need to place the question mark inside the quotation marks. If it is not part of the quoted material, you need to place it outside the quotation marks. In this case, did he say I love you? The question mark is placed outside because it is not the part of the quoted material. It is part of the entire sentence. Okay. Okay, this is it for today. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.